back to another episode of Hustlers Highlights. What we do here on my channel is we discuss movies and TV shows and things within that space. As promised, I was able to stay up this time long enough to watch Daredevil Episode 5 and 6, and we're able to get this episode out for you guys of Hustlers Highlights tonight. So, getting right in here, Daredevil Born Again, Episode 5 jumps right out the gate with Matt Murdock going to what we find out later is New York Mutual Bank to request a loan for his attorney's office or law office to be expanded. He is speaking with, because the bank manager had to take a few hours off that morning, he ends up speaking with the assistant bank manager, who happens to be Yusuf Khan, Kamala Khan's father, who we all know as Miss Marvel. So it's pretty cool. We ended up seeing a scene where Matt and Yusuf are discussing what Matt is asking for. As I mentioned, he's asking for a bank loan to expand his law office. And unfortunately, because of the type of defense and the type of clients that Matt's office represents, there's not a lot of capital coming into the office. So Yusuf unfortunately has to reject his bank offer or his bank loan request. But we get a few cameo scenes, a few cameo moments. He does name drop Kamala straight off the bat. We actually even see a Funko Pop of Miss Marvel when he mentions that they have their own hero in Jersey City. So it was pretty cool that they were able to show us that and connect this world once again. As I mentioned, they connected it before with Spider-Man. It's just doubling down on that now, letting us know that, of course, if you live in New York, Jersey, or New Jersey, it's a stone's throw from New York. So it'd be weird if you didn't have interplay between Matt Murdock and Kamala Khan, at least as some extended version, which we get here in the form of Yusuf Khan, Kamala's father. So, unfortunately, like as I mentioned, Matt's loan request was rejected, and Matt was offered a piece of candy as a kind gesture, uh, bearing in mind that his loan request was unfortunately rejected by the bank. Matt departs, and we cut to a crime syndicate preparing for a bank heist, and it appears that bank heist is going, and it does happen at the bank that Yusuf works at. So Matt, having the extreme hearing, he hears that this bank heist is underway and returns back to the bank. We get some nice interplay between Matt and the heisters or the bank heist members, just showing Matt's suaveness, his savviness to kind of work his way around the system. He's always using that blindness as kind of a tool against people who don't understand how much he actually can do, and he does that to well and good effect in this episode. The police, of course, do arrive because in returning, Matt does request that his assistant or his partner in the law office calls 911. They don't really show how she knows what's going on, but it moves so fast that you don't notice it in the show that was a small plot hole. They do the bank heist crew round everybody up, including Yusuf at some point. Once he's actually found in his office, they try to get the bank manager to reveal himself, but because the bank manager is not there, they eventually find out that Yusuf is the assistant, and they ask him if he can open the vault. In his panic and nervousness, he says that he can. Matt obviously knows that he's lying, and later he asks him, can you actually do what you said you can do? And he tells Matt that he can't. He was just nervous, and that's the first thing he could think to say. Matt tells him to stall when he gets there. At the time, we think that maybe he's hoping that he can stall for the police, but we do find out that Matt has his own plans underway. The leader of the bank heist is, of course, speaking with a hostage negotiator. The hostage negotiator requests that he release two hostages for whatever he's going to request. He does request three ATVs, uh, all terrain vehicles at this point. I'm sure he assumes if they're coming from the police, they'll be fully armored. And that's apparently going to be his way out, at least from what we're able to determine at this part of this juncture in the show. Now, this is where things get a little interesting. The two that they actually request, that they actually choose to remove from the heist or the hostage situation, is the wife of a recently married couple and then Matt. Matt, using his blindness and a little bit of his suaveness, negotiates with the hostages to just let the husband go with the wife, which works out, so it leaves Matt in the bank during the heist itself. Matt weasels his way into a restroom situation where he says he has to go, and one of the hostages takes him downstairs, which is closer to the vault, which was we learned earlier that the vault was 4 story or 4 floors down. So Matt going down closer to the vault, he can hear that Yusuf stalling isn't the greatest plan because Yusuf isn't great at stalling. Some of the things he says is actually pretty funny. He mentions the history of the vault, which no hostage, no bank heist member will be interested in, and Matt does, of course, disable the bank heister that's taking him downstairs and makes his way to Yusuf, disables that heister, and Matt, using his hearing, and deduces that it's probably better for them to figure out what they came here to steal as leverage. He uses his hearing to pop the vault open, finds out that there is a key on one of the bank heisters, and using the two key system, Yusuf is able to figure out which of the safety deposit boxes they were actually after, and they find this large amber diamond inside. Um, it cuts to Matt and Yusuf making their way up the stairs. Obviously, have some explaining to do what happened to the guards that were guarding them. But Matt basically tells them, "Hey, listen, that's not the question you need to ask right now. What you need to be worried about is how you getting out of here because the cops aren't going to get." He said, "How much negotiation have they done with you recently?" And Matt tells them that's because they're done negotiating. They plan to come in and take you. And Matt throws a diamond uh, at the lead guy, and the cops do break in. Matt can hear them counting down, so he knew that he timed that perfectly. What uh, what makes that interesting? What makes that first little scene or that first episode interesting is that Matt does go almost full Daredevil. So what happens is the lead thief gets away. He had a backup plan. Ultimately, what was going to happen was the plan B in this story was he would end up with the diamond. He was wearing a police uniform under his thief gear, and everyone else would get caught but him. And it was almost working until Matt was able to hear where he was walking, chases him down, and goes almost full Daredevil. The scene you see in the trailer with Matt putting on the ski mask, the red ski mask, that's the scene that plays out in this episode. And Matt does beat him to a pulp. Pretty gruesome scene where Matt pins him against some railing and jumps straight down on his knee in the direction in which your knee should not bend. So, pretty good little violent scene there. It does cut after that's done to back to Yusuf and Matt re-meeting at the bank after the heist is over, and we Yusuf tells Matt, "Hey, listen, thanks for everything you did, but the bank's not going to change its stance on the loan. But maybe you can meet with us maybe you and I can discuss some things we can do outside of the bank to maybe change your trajectory on your profits for your organization or your law office. They agree, uh, and basically what Yusuf is saying is that we're going to have a dinner together, you and my family, including Kamala. So I think they were setting up a future meet between Matt and Kamala, obviously. And Matt does at the end of this episode accept a piece of the candy finally. In doing so, he does in fact put that amber diamond in the cup, and Yusuf's able to find it. Obviously, Yusuf is able to deduce that somehow Matt was the one, and Matt somehow got this diamond from the thieves or the thieves. Honestly, that was really the end of the episode. But what I'm gonna, to be honest, I don't understand now. Now that I've watched both episodes, I really don't get why they put 5 and 6 together. I thought it had something to do with Muse, but now I'm thinking they just didn't think that episode 5 would be a complete, a full enough story to captivate the audience, so they just put 5 and 6 together. I really was expecting to see more of a Muse story in episode 5, and Muse was completely absent. So the jury's still out on why they decided to bond those 2 episodes for us uh, as they did. I thought that it may, I still don't understand what the point of that was unless it somehow plays out later. But either way, neither here nor there, we do skip to episode 6, and it opens with the a reporter asking people in the city if they feel safe, and one of the civilians replies that we do have vigilantes in the city, and they name drop swordsmen, and you see a clip of him fighting some criminals in the street with the sword, which was pretty cool. That they're giving us, because, like I said, if you live within the city, it doesn't make sense for you not to bump into these other characters. So it's cool that we're seeing some of these side characters, some of these bigger characters being alluded to and straight up just shown in some cases in this season. So definitely appreciate them, because in Marvel's history, they had a habit of just pretending like that person wouldn't know that person exists, even though they live a mile and a half from each other. So it is pretty cool. They've finally figured out maybe we should stop doing that. So we got Swordsman straight up name drop, straight up shown, uh, covered, for of course, face covered, but shown in his full fighting glory as a video recording on one of the civilians' cell phone. We cut from that to a dead body. The dead body appears to be drained of all of its blood, is sitting on a shoreline, on a coastline. And this is where the Muse story really picks up. That body that we see looks, it had to be the same body he was carrying into that dungeon in the previous episode. That last little ending snip that we saw of Muse carrying that body down there to fully drain his body of blood, which lines up. We cut from that to Matt praying. He's holding a picture, the obituary picture of Foggy, and he's praying. And as he's praying, he's recalling some of his past trauma, including Foggy's death, his battle with Bullseye, his issues with Kingpin, and a few other things he's gone through, including Hector's trial and Hector's ultimate demise. Uh, from that point, we cut to a scene with Mayor Fisk, and we get a little bit more of the play out of his 2 lives. We see one of the gang leaders show straight up to his mayor office, just sits there unannounced, uninvited, and tries to basically challenge Fisk in his face. Like, you have stepped away from this life, you need to stay away. And Fisk tries to flex his power, like, you know what, I'm going to double down on the debt you owe now since you want to try me. And We never see how that plays out yet, but I have a feeling we'll end up coming back to that at some point. But you can see that Mayor Fisk, Kingpin, is struggling to remain gang neutral in this mayor run that he's going through. But we do find out in this same scene, once the thug or the gang leader leaves, we get not really an interview, but a request to see the mayor from someone in sanitation. Seems like a leader in the sanitation department. He said he does mention he's been there for 30 plus years, and he mentions that Mayor Fisk had requested they remove the murals that had been spray painted, or what they assumed were spray painted on the walls in the city, on the buildings, the walls of the buildings in the city. And he reports that he attempted to have it, pressure washed. That didn't work. Then sandblasted. That didn't work. And then when he realized that it was an epoxy mix, he had it tested and found out that not only was an epoxy used to make the murals, but the epoxy was mixed with human blood. This immediately prompts Fisk to investigate further. And at this point, we find out that Muse has not only used human blood in a few murals, but during the investigation, the uh, police chief found that they have found at least 60 different persons' DNA or body, a trace of DNA within the murals around the city. So Muse has been doing this for a while, and he officially is named or he's been relegated to a serial killer. And for obvious reasons, if you've killed 60 people to make murals, that's what you will be called in any society. Um, we do cut from that point to Hector's niece walking to Matt's office to speak with him. She had deduced that Hector, White Tiger, post mortem, he had during his life and his dealings as the White Tiger, he was looking into something, and she alludes to that. Like, she feels like he was looking into the missing persons. This is before Matt knew anything about Muse. And she gets a little upset because Matt, at this point, he pretty much tells her, hey, listen, this is something that the cops should handle. And she does straight up tell him, you mean the cops that killed my uncle? You want me to go to them and say, hey, this is what uncle was looking into? And she, upset and rightfully so, tells him, I thought you were one of the people that was going to help me. And she does say, my uncle told me before he died that, never rely on someone to do something you can do for yourself. And it was just a nice touching moment because it does show you Matt's reaction to what she's saying. It shows you how much Matt is truly struggling, trying to walk that line, knowing he can do things the vigilante way, but still trying to maintain the lawyer-esque or lawyer lifestyle and letting the cops do things the right way, even though he knows that there's so much corruption in the city that it's probably not going to happen the way he hopes. So we cut from that to Mayor Fisk basically has to placate these billionaires in the city. And you can really see that he's struggling with that because he's starting to realize that these billionaires, and Vanessa tells him prior to the little gathering or the gala that, you're used to, giving people what they want or taking what they want and getting things done that way. But you won't be able to do that with billionaires. You won't be able to convince them that you hold something they want in the city because they think they run the city. And you see that played out when Fisk tries to have conversations and tries to show them what he's trying to accomplish. And they basically tear him apart. And he does a bump into Swordmaster in this gala. Swordmaster, of course, is very wealthy. So he should be there. And he gives Fisk what he calls is not a threat, but a warning, is that these people may not be the murder type. They may not be the, put a sword in your neck type, but they have enough money and power that if they make the right phone call, you disappear. just showing Fisk that he has really uh, put himself in a position where he's bumping into people more powerful than himself, and really just pushing Fisk to uncomfortable situations. Coming from a guy who built himself from nothing and had the thought process that he was the most powerful. He led the gangs. He ran the city, not realizing that there was a deeper layer to this thing. And one of the billionaires tells him, like, you think that you've done things and you had your way with things, but you don't understand that we make the decision who eats in this city. And you be right to remember that. Like, really just checking Fisk in his face, and you just see the power that they have, and it really just shows you that even someone as powerful as the Kingpin isn't as powerful as he may think, and he really gets checked here. He it's the first time you see him get checkmated in the chess game, and it really was cool to see that, because you can see he was struggling with how to react to that. Like, how does someone who thinks they've always held the ultimate power get faced with real power? How do they respond in the face of real power? And these people have it, and it'll be. I'm sure that this won't be the last time that we reapproach that situation, because him meeting them, it does put a wrinkle in his plans. Everything that he has set in motion, he's starting to realize that he won't be able to get them done the way he thinks or the way he thought. Like, there are some people that in power here that they think they run the show, and as so far they have. Um, but we cut from that, and Fisk has to leave the gala early because Muse has struck again. He has killed two apparently college age females, drained them of their blood, and basically made a mural as a laugh at the police. Like, he understands the police know what he's done, but he doesn't care because they can't stop him. And because of that, Mayor Fisk has called the police chief in and basically told him, hey, listen, I want you to gather these guys up. I'm going to be in charge of the new task force. And he basically calls the task force the anti-vigilante task force, where he has gathered the worst of the worst in the police force in New York, and basically gave them free range. No chest, no vest cams, basically no rules. You go out and you find this serial killer and you bring him to justice, and I'll cover the rest. I definitely think that's going to backfire, because some of the people in the room, you can just tell they were waiting for something like that to happen. And I don't think that Fisk understands what he's unleashed on the city, and I think that's going to backfire in a major way, in a major way. The police chief even calls the cops that he's trying to gather, the worst of the worst. Like, even the police chief knows you don't put these guys on any kind of task force, and Fisk has made the decision to do so. We cut from that. This episode cuts a lot. It cuts back. It isn't hard to follow. It may be hard to follow as I'm describing it to you, but I'm just giving you the highlights. As you're watching it, it's not as hard to follow as it may be hard to follow listening to me recap it. And if you've watched it, I hope you have. If you're watching this show, then you know what I mean. But we cut from that, and Hector's niece does follow on what she's last said. She's going to take this into her own hands, and she's pretty much tracked down where the Muse is. She's walking down this railway, and you hear a noise, and then we cut to Matt receiving a phone call from her mother saying that she's gone missing. This is where things really pick up in the action for sure. This is because Matt has been struggling with this so far, and because he knows he can't. He does try to call nine. As a matter of fact, he calls 911. His first thought is to go and do this the legal way and call the police. But then he realizes that ultimately him doing it that way won't save her life. If she is involved in what he thinks she's involved in, then she's going to end up dead before they find this girl. And he knows this because Cherry, the previous detective that have retired, told him, hey, listen, my guys have told me on the force that this is what's going on. There's a serial killer on the loose. And he tries to keep Matt from doing anything. But because this little girl that he cares about has got herself involved with the Muse, Matt says F it and just puts on a Daredevil suit and takes off the streets. And this is where things, like I said, it really gets action packed. It really gets cool here because you, as I mentioned, the show does cut and cut and cut and cut and cut. So you move from Matt to Kingpin and from Matt to the police chief and from Matt to the Muse. And this part they what they decided to do with the direction of the show was really cool because you get a spot in the show towards the end where you're following Matt, but then you're following Kingpin, and you're following Matt, and you're following Kingpin, and those scenes get closer and closer together to where you're having like almost a bat action sequence. And what I mean by that is, so Muse has taken Hector's niece. He brings her to the dungeon, he dopes her up, and he's starting to drain her blood. He hears a sound. Come to find out, Daredevil has found this dude, and Daredevil starts to give him a good old fashioned whooping. In between time, Kingpin has decided that it's time to go ahead and bury the hatchet with Adam. He walks up to Adam, has an axe in his hand, and tells Adam, when I was a child, I fought men much larger than myself, but I learned that a simple tool, and he holds the axe, can even the playing field. And he throws the axe at Adam, and Adam and Kingpin have a fight. So as you're having this intense, violent fight with Muse and Daredevil, you also have an equally intense and violent fight with Kingpin and Adam. And they both pick up in intensity and pick up in violence and pick up in bloodshed. And then they culminate to both fights ending. One side, Matt has defeated the Muse, but of course he needs to save the niece, so he has to let the Muse, he intends to get back to the Muse, but the Muse escapes. And then Adam attempts to defeat the Kingpin, but gets beat to a pulp. And it was just really a really good way to end the episode, having that flash for flash fight sequence. Really, really, really cool. It cuts us there. It kind of ends there, but it leaves a lot of questions. And I'm looking forward to the next episode because there were so many things that happened, from Matt finally donning the Daredevil persona. What happens now when Kingpin finds out, the mayor? And he's just started this anti-vigilante task force. Now that Hector's niece has started to take herself down this path, will she finally don the mantle of White Tiger? What's going to transpire between the promise of dinner with Yusuf Khan and Matt Murdock, especially now that he knows that Matt was the one who brought the diamond back? And I'm sure there's going to be questions there. Just a lot of things. What happens with the gang leader that pretty much told Kingpin to, shove it. There's going to be a lot of things they're going to need to wrap up, and we only have a few episodes left. I think this season was only a 9-episode season drawn out. So with only 3 left, there's a lot of things to close the loop on. There will be a season 2, so maybe they can leave a few things for us as, on the next season of. But so far, so good. I'm loving what I'm getting from Daredevil Born Again. I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I have. But if you are not, or maybe you notice some things in these 2 episodes that I missed, either way, leave your comments down in the comment section below. And thank you guys for hanging out with me so far. I will see you on the next episode of Hustlers Highlights. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. So I have a few. I don't not have an idea. I just have too many ideas to lock myself into which one I'm going to do quite yet. So tomorrow will be a little bit of a surprise, but we will drop an episode tomorrow. But as I said before, If you haven't subscribed already, please like and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you guys tomorrow on the next episode of Hustlers Highlights. Take care.